Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. Today we'll be talking about presenting in English as part of our speaking skills techniques. And who doesn't want to make a great impression? So we're talking about first impressions today. According to the 1990 rule in business, we make 90% of our impressions on someone in the first 90 seconds of meeting them. The first 90 seconds. So that's very short, you might say, a time in which to be making an impression of someone. But it takes that little, and we're constantly making impressions, and we're totally impressed by people who have good English speaking skills and can deliver and have a good demeanor. So half the skill is having a good temperament and demeanor in making a first impression, but the rest of it is having good speaking or language skills. And it's not surprising, in fact, that many of my students tell me, Lisa, what does it take? What do I have to do to be a good orator, a good, confident, natural speaker of English? And what does it take to make a great first impression, right? And it's a very legitimate question that everybody wants to know how to answer. The truth is that good presentation skills take effort, time, and patience to learn, because it depends on a variety of things such as your current English level, your reasons for wanting to learn English presentation skills, and it depends on how much time you've got and what type of tutor you have to help you along your way. So always keep in mind that a good speaker has a good mixture of grammar accuracy and range, good lexical range and accuracy, and also that teamed with good intonation and good pronunciation. So you need everything in order to be a confident speaker. And of course we forgot you. You are the most important thing. Confidence and personality. And for some people, it might take a couple of weeks to learn presentation skills. It might take months. For some people it takes longer, and some people it takes shorter time to learn. So it doesn't really matter how long it takes, as long as you have the patience to learn it. And a good tutor will be able to give you good tips, tricks and techniques that you'll be able to try in class together. Now, as a CELTA certified tutor, I have given presentation techniques courses to thousands of people, professionals, entrepreneurs and business teams. So let's have a look at something I always tell my students upon starting their first course with me. And it has to do with learning. All the great speakers were bad speakers at one point, guys. So don't worry, don't give up, never lose hope, because you can learn these tricks and techniques if you go along with what I'm telling you. So today we're going to practice only one of those techniques, of course, because we don't have a lot of time, and it's just skimming over the basics of what we call pacing. Now, pacing is a typically used technique in helping orators to make a good speech. Now, it is a very important technique. It's a simple way of keeping your audience engaged by varying the speed of your speaking. Okay, so that means not speaking too fast, otherwise nobody will catch up with you. And are you taking notes right now? Have you listened to a word I said? Just very, very confusing, especially to a non-native speaker crowd, okay? But on the other hand, it's not advisable to make your sessions too slow either. If you go at a snail's pace, people will find you boring, guys, and nobody wants to sleep through a lecture. I want to be entertained and informed. So let's go through what pacing really involves, how to vary your pacing, shake it up. Don't slow down the pace of the phrases you say too much. As we said, it can be boring. Don't pause too frequently or too infrequently. Always keep A steady pace. Rushing through your presentation is an absolute no-go, okay? Because it's very unprofessional and people might misinterpret your sentences or might completely lose the point of what it is you're trying to say. And that's a very sure way of losing the message of that sales pitch. You want to nail that sales pitch. So take it easy, take your time, and say things clearly, say them right. Okay? Remember that one word could possibly carry many different meanings or interpretations. So it's always good to have a good English tutor who's an expert, who will be able to help you write your script and who will be able to tell you whether you're using the right wording, okay, or the right sentence in the right context. Otherwise, you risk being misinterpreted, and that's the last thing you want to be doing. The meaning of the sentence could also change according to the pacing you use. Okay, so this means that if you speak too fast sometimes, you might not carry the same meaning along with it as if you slow down that sentence. You might hear orators do this a lot. In fact, if you watch TED Talks, if you watch comedy, if you watch presentations made, if you listen to speakers that you really love, the pacing throughout their presentations will vary, absolutely. But how they vary is important. Sometimes you might want to speed things up for comic effect, or when you're making a particularly important or morose point or serious point or point of reference, you might want to slow down the pacing a bit for effect. So you pause for effect and you pace for effect. Now today we're going to try a technique. We're going to try listening to two sentences. We're going to read them together, and I would like you to consider which of these two sentences you think was more natural. Now these two sentences, or rather this one sentence, okay, was actually used in a real life business presentation. But which of these two sentences below was actually used? Because of course it's more sound and more natural. Have a look at them. We always talk about hooking or engaging our audience in business presentation techniques. Have you decided which one you think was more effective and which one you think is more natural, basically? Okay, let's listen to each one and try to copy what I'm saying for effect. Copy my intonation as well. Ready? Big companies are small companies that succeeded. Big companies are small companies that succeeded. Okay, have you changed your mind at all about which sentence you think was more natural? Okay, let's look at which sentence was actually used in the speaking presentation to see if you were right. It was B. Big companies are small companies that succeeded. So this is the only natural sentence out of the two that an English speaker would actually use. So it would come intuitive to an English speaker to use this sentence. Let's see why. We start off first with the subject. We always start off with a main subject, followed by a bit of a pause. This pause can be as long or as short as you think it needs to be. So you have to use your own judgment. You need to have awareness and you need to have experience of speaking English to know when a pause is needed and when it is unnecessary. So here, okay, he made a medium to long pause, I would say. Why? Because he paused before giving the definition of the subject. He paused for effect. Okay, for his students to, for his audience to be able to really grasp the meaning, to consider the nature of the subject, and so perhaps to even make a prediction. which is the definition. Okay, so this was one of the sentences that was used in a presentation. Let's go to another sentence that was used in the same business presentation. Have a look at these two sentences. Now, which pacing technique do you think is more effective, and which one do you think was actually used in this particular business presentation because of its natural abilities and its natural pacing? Read and think. Okay, so now that you've thought about it, let's read and listen and repeat. The idea that you can actually predict what's going to happen contradicts my way of looking at the market. Compare. The idea that you can actually predict what's going to happen contradicts my way of looking at the market. Which one do you think was more effective and why? Okay, now let's see if we've changed our minds. Have you changed your mind, or has it remained the same as before? And let's have a look at the answer. Which sentence was actually used? The sentence used was A, because A was much more effective because it was natural. It was given at a natural pacing. Therefore, it's much more memorable. Let's have a look at the pausing, right, that this person used. Listen again. The idea that you can actually predict what's going to happen contradicts my way of looking at the market. So if you want to make your business presentation effective, you've got to make it natural. And to do this, you've got to listen to an English speaker. Follow the advice that your English tutor gives you as well. So let's go to another quote from the same business presentation, guys. Again, read the two sentences. Which technique of pacing do you think was more effective? Read and think. Okay, have you thought about which sentence sounds more natural and therefore more effective? If you have, let's listen. To turn really interesting ideas and fledgling technologies into a company that can continue to innovate for years, it requires a lot of discipline. Compare. To turn really interesting ideas and fledgling technologies into a company that can continue to innovate for years, it requires a lot of discipline. All right, now, have you changed your mind about the pacing, or is it more or less the same as it was before? And now let's see the actual answer. The sentence the speaker originally used was sentence B. Sentence B makes you a better orator because it's more effective and more natural. Therefore, it is more memorable. To turn really interesting ideas and fledgling technologies into a company that can continue to innovate for years, it requires a lot of discipline. So here, as you can see, the second pause was shorter than the other two pauses. But the longest pauses, okay, the shorter pause was probably made because the speaker had to catch his breath. But the longer pauses here are to instill a sense of longing or anticipation or interest or consideration in the audience. Okay, so this was actually the sentence here. One clause divided into two separate subjects, but it's actually the same subject divided into two by the speaker for effect. That's why he uses a longer pause in that particular part of the sentence. And then he goes on to finishing his sentence. Well, not the sentence, just part of the clause. As you can see here, a clause is usually indicated by the fact that it usually ends in a comma. And then another longish pause, that's his last pause, to conclude the meaning, the definition, okay, to give meaning, to give sort of structure to his whole sentence, okay? So the conclusion needs or requires the longest pause if it is something you want your audience to remember. So if it's something you think they need to keep in mind, then it requires a longer pause. Right, so thank you very much for joining me. That's all we have today. But before letting you go, we're going to give you a little bit of a summary of the things we learned in today's lesson, right? A good pace with a combination of good intonation that rises and falls, okay, will give you and your audience actually time for the message to be grasped. Your audience needs to have time to let that message sink in, okay? Make your point effective by applying stress on key words. If you're not sure what stress is and what words are stressed in English and what words are not stressed, your English tutor should be able to help you along the way by explaining and giving you some exercises to do for stress and intonation. Okay, and finally, don't slow down the pace of your phrases. Don't pause too frequently or in unnecessary places. Only pause when you have to make a particular point, so as to keep the audience engaged in your argument at all times throughout your presentation. Remember to keep a nice, good, steady pace, and you'll be well on your way to speaking in a more confident, more natural manner. All of these things mentioned here will bring you your desired interpretation and therefore will help you in your sales pitch or whatever it is you want to do with your speaking. So that's it for today. Thank you very much for tuning in. Don't forget to visit my website at womslearnenglish.com if you want to book an online lesson with me. Here are some of the classes we offer, from general English to business English to IELTS preparation, and for those who would like a tailor-made lesson, we also offer 1-to-1 private lessons. So that's it. Thanks for watching. If you liked this presentation and found it useful, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Okay, and see you next time on one of my videos.